Okay, what we have learned in the video part 1 is the general structure of neurons. General, tapi actually there are 3 types of neuron. Okay, the first one is motor neuron, the second one is sensory neuron, and then the third one is relay neuron. Okay, macam mana dia punya connection ni? Motor neuron is something, kita will start with, if you can recall, when we learn about coordination, we start with stimulus. We start with stimulus, okay, rangsangan. Okay, stimulus detected by the receptor. Detect by a receptor. So this receptor will send impulse, aka information, impulse aka nerve, okay, nerve, nerve, nerves, information to the brain. Okay, this receptor send the impulse to the brain, through sensory neuron. Okay, sensory neuron. Then let's say brain ni sudah terima impulse, and then dia mau hantar pula this another impulse to the effector. Maksudnya to create a response. Okay, to create a response. So this impulse send to the effector through what? Motor neuron. Okay, through motor neuron. So where is the relay neuron? The relay neuron is between this one, connection between sensory and motor neuron. Okay, so this where the relay neuron located. It connects the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. So again, this is where the relay neuron located. It's connect the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. Okay, now let's go one by one. What is a motor neuron? What is the structure? Structure is same like what we have learned just now. It has a dendrite, and then cell body, axon, and also synaptic knob. The direction, of course, from dendrite towards the synaptic knob. Okay, this motor neuron can be found in the ventral root of spinal nerves. Remember, where is the spinal nerves? Okay, there is the brain and then spinal cord. So branch out from the spinal cord is spinal nerve. So there is where the motor neuron located. Okay, this again, I told you, this motor neuron will receive a nerve impulse from the relay neuron, okay, of the central nervous system, and send it to the effectors. Okay, nampak ni? Macam ni. Motor neuron ni, dia terima nerve impulse from relay neuron, and then send it to the effector. Okay, now let's look at sensory neuron. Okay, sensory neuron, what is different what is the difference between motor neuron and sensory neuron is where the cell body located. You can see here the cell body of sensory neuron is located at the center here, okay, in the dorsal root ganglion. Okay, dendrite, kita nampak di sini dendrite. Usually kita akan terus nampak cell body kan, tapi tidak, dia terus ke axon, tapi dan cell body ini di tengah-tengah. Okay, what is the function? It's to receive nerve impulse from receptor. Sudah cuba explain tadi. Sensory receive impulse from the receptor. Yes, receptor. Okay, And then when the sensory receive the nerve impulse, the nerve impulse will be transferred to cell body and next to the axon, and then synaptic knob to be transferred to the next neuron. Okay, now what is the function of relay neuron? Okay, relay neuron is to connect sensory neuron and motor neuron, tengah-tengah tadi. Okay, itu sahajalah. Jadi tapi the structure of this relay neuron is much simpler because there's no elongated branches. It just dendrite, cell body, and synaptic knob. Okay, meaning that relay neuron has no axon. Okay, it's much simpler. Okay, now we have these neurons. Okay, what type of neurons is this? Okay, cell body ada di atas, meaning that this is a motor neuron. Okay, so we have two motor neurons here. So now we're going to discuss about synapse. Okay, before I'm introducing, explain to you what is synapse is. Let's look the structure and function of synapse. Okay, so as you know, this impulse is in the form of electrical signal. Okay, impulse is actually in a form of electrical signal. So this impulse is first received at dendrite. Dia terima impulse aka electrical signal, and then goes down to the cell body, and then start from axon. It start to jump from one node Ranvier to the next node and then finally arrives at synaptic knob. And then from this synaptic node, it needs to be transferred to the next neuron. Okay, so what is important here, there's a gap here. Dendrite and synaptic knob from these two neurons is not touching each other. Dia tidak bersentuh, dia mesti ada gap. So this gap, this is what we call a synapse. Okay, gap yang ada ini yang kita panggil synapse. Okay, di synapse ni ataupun dia panggil the narrow gap between two neurons. Okay, kenapa dia ada gap? Kenapa dia attach to each other? Because when this impulse tadi, yang red color ni, electric signal ni, dia mau pergi, it wants to be transferred to the next neuron, it will change into chemical signal. Okay, chemical signal. Okay, dia masuk di sini, dia bukan lagi electrical, dia jadi, let's change it to green color. Maksudnya it happens, this is what happened, it needs in the form of chemical signal. So bila dia sampai sudah di next dendrite of the next neuron, it change back to electrical signal, and then jump synaptic knob, then mau pergi lagi next neuron, tukar lagi jadi chemical signal. Boleh nampak flow dia, macam itulah cycle dia. Next. Asal dia ada synapse saja, dia akan tukar to chemical signal. Okay, so how the transmission of impulse across the synapse. Kita tengok sini, there are 3 steps. Okay, 3 steps. Inilah kalau kamu tengok sini, gap dia tu sebenarnya tidaklah besar macam yang cikgu lukis. It's just a narrow sempit. Okay, narrow gap di sini. Jadi, okay, before that, you need to understand the chemical. There's a chemical substance that involved, which called neurotransmitter. Okay, neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter ni kamu kena ingat lah, neurotransmitter. Okay, neurotransmitter it's can be found in synaptic vesicles. Okay, vesicles ni kantong. Okay. Synaptic vesicles at the end of the synaptic knob. Okay. Neurotransmitter ni adalah general name. Okay, there are two yang lebih spesifik, which is serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, and noradrenaline. Okay, you can find it in the textbook, page 225. There are names of neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter ni ada banyak jenis. The two most found in our body is noradrenaline and also acetylcholine. Okay, so imagine tadi sekarang kita berada di knob, synaptic knob, yang ini pula hujung dendrit. Okay, ini synaptic knob, yang ini pula dendrit. Okay, mari kita tengok yang gambar aja lebih jelas lah di sini. Okay, so the first one, what happened is when electrical impulse, I'm referring to number 1, when electrical impulse reach the synaptic knob, synaptic vesicle are stimulated to release neurotransmitter into the synapse. Okay, so let's see. Inilah ni yang vesicle bulat-bulat ni. Bulat ni synaptic vesicle. It has a neurotransmitter. Bila terima electrical impulse, it will stimulate to release pergi synapse yang ada gap tadi tu. Okay, and then yang kena release tadi tu, neurotransmitter, it will combine with specific receptor. Ni dalam warna merah ni, receptor ni dia akan combine with specific receptor on the dendrit. Okay, and then number 3, the binding of the neurotransmitter and the receptor stimulate the initiation of the next impulse. Maksudnya bila neurotransmitter ni release, combine, and then initiate pula yang baru, sambung balik dalam bentuk electrical signal. Okay, as you can see here, apa benda ni, apa komponen ni yang kuning-kuning ni. Okay, this is, of course there's label here, this is mitochondrion. What is the function of mitochondrion? Mitochondrion is to generate energy, because energy is needed for the transmission of the impulse. Sebab itu kenapa kita akan jumpa banyak mitochondrion di sini. Okay, so that is the subtopic that we want to learn today. The types of neuron ada 3 bentuk, which is motor neurons, sensory neuron, and relay neuron. Okay, you need to understand the structure, and then the next one you need to understand what is synapse and how the transmission of impulse in synapse. Okay, thank you very much.